Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, June 27th. I have something to read before we start. The city has returned to hybrid public meetings pursuant to AB 361, which allows for the deviation from the teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. To participate remotely, residents can live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube or call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via phone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting and remain open throughout the meeting to ensure the opportunity for the public to comment on each item heard by the Commission. Written comments may be submitted via email to planning@prcity.com. Those received prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting to be posted to the city's website as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. Planning Commission meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link: www.prcity.com/YouTube. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Darren.
Commissioner Marlowe.
Present.
Commissioner Connolly.
Here.
Commissioner Kogler. Here. Commissioner Covarrubias.
Here.
Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Christensen. Chairperson Neal.
Here.
And Commissioners Davis and Christensen let us know that they were not going to be able to make it tonight, and Commissioner Kogler is remote tonight.
Very good. Staff introductions.
Darren Nash, planner.
Marcy Reynoso and Ashley Peterson, administrative assistants.
Katie Bannister, associate planner.
This is Annie Branham, legal counsel.
I think that's it. So now's the time for general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda. Does anybody here wish to speak on items not on tonight's agenda? Marcy, do we have any callers?
No, but if we could pause for a minute, and we're having some difficulties getting this onto YouTube, so we want to make sure that it is on live. So if we'll just take a minute.
Of course.
Thank
Give
you.
me the thumbs up.
We are now live on YouTube, so thank you.
You are very welcome. Item F, agenda items to be proposed to be tabled or rescheduled. Do we have any this evening?
There are none.
Great, thank you. Now we'll open it up to public hearing. Our first item and only item is a development plan for 19 residential units at 2508 Spring Street, which was continued from the June 13th, 2023 Planning Commission. The request is to convert an existing commercial building into an office and 14 multifamily units, and to construct a new building with 5 multifamily residential units for a total of 19 residential units. Development plan 22-22 and P220133. Staff. Report, please. Katie?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Neal. So as you stated, this is a project where that involves the reuse of an existing commercial building into a commercial project, 2508 Spring Street. So looking at the location, this is on Spring Street between 24th and 26th Street. The project does include a reduced rear setback, and so I think it's important to understand that to the east of the project is MGE Underground, a lot of outdoor storage. There is a slope. I think it's at least 20 feet of elevational difference. MGE is lower than the project, and then to the north is AES Electrical, also kind of a contract construction yard as well. And so as for perspective, that's something to be aware of. This is at the boundary of several zoning districts. So to the south is the TC2 zoning district, and then to the north, including this site, and then to the north of that along Spring Street is the T4F zoning district. Right there at the corner of 26th and Spring Street is the reuse of the former Moose Lodge. And so obviously we've got a building that's been under construction for some time there, just a couple doors down. Jumping into the site plan, here you can see what is proposed. There are 6 oak trees in the vicinity of the project. None of them are actually on the subject lot. The arborist was most interested in and had some mitigation measures, mostly for the 2 in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen at the southeast corner of the lot. Primarily, the arborist just wants to see the asphalt that's there on top of those trees today to remain and to not see any new disturbance under those trees. The arborist was less concerned about the trees to the north. The long building, the commercial building, is largely going to stay in place. And so some monitoring will be needed where there's some demolition proposed. But in general, the arborist felt that the proposed development did not pose a risk to the life of these trees. So now in orange on the screen is more or less the footprint of the existing building. It's a long, narrow building perpendicular from Spring Street. The applicant proposes to divide that building into 4 separate buildings. You can see in yellow there the footprints of those buildings. The building at the front, the first closest to Spring Street there on the left side of the screen on the west side of the property, would include an extension of the building to include an office. It also allows for a more appropriate frontage. Today, the building really kind of ignores the fact that it's on Spring Street, that it's almost got a rear of a building facing Spring, and all the access is from the parking lot. This would have an office that faces Spring Street and give it a more street-facing presence, which is what is desired by the Uptown Town Center specific plan. In addition to the 4 buildings made from the existing building, a new building is proposed in the rear. This would be a 36-foot tall building, which is the maximum allowed for stacked dwellings in this zone, and would include 5 residential units there at the rear of the building. There is, in addition, a recreational open space area between the kind of the 4th building and the 5th building. You can see kind of a basketball key there and some picnic tables and so forth there in between buildings, the 4th and 5th buildings. As I said, that rear building would be about 5 feet from the rear property line, and that's less than is required by the specific plan for the rear setback. The side setback, that northern property line, 8 feet is the appropriate setback for that line. So you can see those setbacks there. The property or the project would be accessed via a shared access easement that's partially on the subject lot and then also partially on the lot to the south, and would continue to use the parking along the building there at the southern, near the southern property line. So here is an image of the existing building. This is just taken from Google Street View. So as I said, the front of the building doesn't really, there's no pedestrian access from the front of the building. It's actually sunken down from Spring Street by 3 or 4 feet there. That office that is proposed would actually be at grade with Spring Street, and so there would be a direct pedestrian access from Spring Street to that office, and then the residential units would be behind at that kind of lower grade. Here is the perspective of what is proposed. So obviously the building gets cut into several buildings, and then it is given new siding. The existing roofing would be painted to match the roofing proposed for the new building at the rear of the lot, and then little courtyard open space, little private open spaces between the buildings would be provided to the each of those residential units in those first 4 buildings. Here's another perspective from Spring Street. You can see there is some screening proposed. There are some mechanical equipment. There's an electrical transformer and the fire department backflow device that would both be screened. You can see the proposed materials there. And then this is a perspective looking as if you were on the MGE lot, kind of, this shows us as if we're at grade. Really, you would be quite a bit lower than this to look up at the building that's proposed there at the rear. Looking at colors and materials, it's a mix of mostly metal siding, metal roofing, a mix of colors, grays and whites and black. And then there is some existing plaster that would be repainted a gray color. And then you can see all the other trim colors and so forth. There's also some wood elements. So jumping into the Uptown Town Center specific plan requirements, as I stated, this is in the T4F zoning district. The project does meet density requirements. There's explaining the density is complicated because of fractional density, but essentially the project could have 15 density units. Small units, studios less than 600 square feet in size count as a half a unit. So this project actually only has 10 density units, so it's actually below its maximum density. As to parking, they are required to provide 20 parking spaces, and that is what is provided, 20 parking spaces. Now looking at the individual buildings, the first 4 buildings are considered triplex and quadplexes, which have the same development standards, triplexes and quadplexes. So you can see these 4 buildings do meet all the building development standards, with the exception of the side setback. The building has an existing non-conforming setback on that northern property line. It's currently, it's actually not 0. I think it's a couple inches off the property line, but it's certainly not 5 feet off the property line, which is what's required. In italics below the side setback line there, you see that the Planning Commission can approve alterations to buildings that have non-conforming setbacks, but you do need to make a finding that it doesn't have a significant adverse impact on public safety or the existing or planned visual character of the neighborhood. This project actually breaks that long, uninterrupted wall up, and so it actually has a more positive aesthetic appearance once the project is complete. And the applicant is working with our building department to make sure that public safety is not an issue. There'll be adequate firewalls and so forth, and no openings in the building walls to ensure that those buildings are safe. And as I said, the other development standards are met here in these first 4 buildings. Moving to that rear building, it's a stack dwelling building type. As you can see, there's a few development standards that are not met. The rear setback requirement is 10 feet. They are requesting a 5-foot setback. They are meeting their side setback. The open space is intended to be, the primary shared open space is intended to be in a courtyard within the stack dwelling building type. We see instead a shared open space to the west of the building. And then, well, actually, I could put my squares on there. So that's the open space is a modification is needed. For stacked dwellings, the Uptown Town Center specific plan wants the buildings to have a street level lobby with interior circulation. So the pedestrian is meant to enter the building and the lobby and then use an internal stairway to get up to upper floor units. However, the applicant is proposing walk-up units. So there's external stairways and no lobby proposed. In addition, the specific plan calls for a maximum of 36 feet in height, but limits buildings to 3 stories. This project does keep the building at 36 feet in height, which is the maximum allowed, but there is an occupied loft proposed as a 4th floor within the building. And so these are the 4 modifications that are enumerated in the resolution that's given to you, the draft resolution, and the Planning Commission can make modifications to development standards within the Uptown Town Center specific plan when it is demonstrated to be physically infeasible for any reasonable type of development within any of the zones. So it's a relatively high bar that the Planning Commission would want to consider in order to approve modifications. If you do desire to approve the modifications, you do need to make a finding that the standards, the modified standards, will not create a physical hazard or negative visual impact when viewed from a street or neighboring property. So those are kind of the 2 things. The first underlined section would be the justification for approving modifications, and then that second is the finding that you would be making. We have approved other residential projects in the not too distant past that included modifications. Most of those have included affordable housing units. We are not seeing affordable units proposed here. And so that's something that the Planning Commission might want to consider, consistency with how we have enforced our development standards on other projects in the city. The project does include a landscaping plan, so they're re-landscaping along the front of the property, and then some landscape islands, and then there is more landscaping around the rear building, including there is a destabilized slope to the east of the property. That's an existing issue. There's a lot of stormwater that runs off the site and then down that 20-foot embankment, and is causing some undercutting. So this project would address some of that erosion as well. So you can see the plant palette here, a relatively simple plant palette, but low water use and appropriate for the site. The draft resolution does include some conditions of approval. Number 5 would be to remove the existing signage for businesses that are on the lot today. That includes a pole sign that's just to the south of the existing driveway. So the project would be conditioned to remove that signage. There are a few gas meters in the front of the building. There are 19 units proposed here, and so trying to fit all those gas meters in the front of the building would be physically challenging, but also aesthetically unpleasing. And so the condition is to remove those gas meters from the front of the building. If there's somewhere else on the site that the applicant can find, this wouldn't preclude them from providing gas to the apartments. They just need to be put somewhere else other than in front of the front building. 7 is also related to screening mechanical and utility equipment. We saw a perspective where the applicant has proposed to do just that, but we wanted to make sure it was included in a condition. Conditions 8 and 9, I think the Planning Commission is going to start seeing more details on garbage enclosures. The city recently hired a solid waste and recycling manager, and he is engaged and ready to help us make sure that garbage enclosures are designed so that Paso Waste and Recycle can adequately serve projects. So Mr. Spalding, who's the solid waste manager, has provided some conditions. One of the conditions would require the exterior of the garbage enclosure to use materials that are used elsewhere in the project. Currently, the plans show it just being a cut place or a CMU block. And so there is one aesthetic condition there, but then also just some practical conditions to make sure that there's adequate space in the garbage enclosure. Condition number 10 is related or lists the modifications that the applicant is requesting. And so that just makes it clear that those are the modifications that are being approved by the Planning Commission. Certainly the Planning Commission could modify those modifications, and we can discuss that this evening. Conditions 11 through 13 are related to oak tree preservation and come from the arborists. suggestions. And then the last specific conditions of approval are related to both the sewer and the stormwater. The applicant's going to need to work with the adjacent property owners to make sure that they can address both of those issues, their wastewater and their stormwater. So as always, the Planning Commission does need to make a series of findings in order to approve the project. Most of them are related to the project being consistent with all of the different plans and policies of the city, and that the project is aesthetically pleasing and compatible with its surrounding land uses and environmental resources. There are two findings there at the bottom. One is related to the modified standards. As we saw in a previous slide, the Planning Commission needs to make additional findings to approve those modified standards, and so that is included in the resolution. And then the final finding you see there is related to allowing modifications to the building with the non-conforming setback. So these are the findings that, if you approve the draft resolution, the findings that the Planning Commission would be making. And I also I didn't have a slide on this, but the project is exempt from CEQA as an infill exception. There's a notice of exemption in the exhibits within the resolution. So the Planning Commission does have options. The first would be to adopt the draft resolution. Currently, the resolution does include all requested modifications. And so if you approve the draft resolution as it reads today, you would be approving all 4 modifications to the project, or to the development standards for the project. Number 2 would be to amend and adopt the draft resolution without some or all modifications if the Planning Commission doesn't feel like the modifications are justified. You could refer the project back to staff or the DRC if you need additional information, or the Planning Commission could deny the project by adopting findings of denial. We do have legal staff on the line this evening with us. This is a residential project, and so there are some high bars for denying residential projects in California these days. So if the Planning Commission is looking to take the 4th option, we would want to make sure we get guidance from our legal counsel. Staff's recommendation is to find the project exempt from CEQA as a Class 32 exemption, and then to consider whether the requested modifications are justified, and make modifications to the draft resolution as needed, or leave it in whole with conditions that make clear which of the modifications have been approved. And I believe, so I've got the modifications listed there so that we can discuss them, and I believe that does conclude my report. That's correct.
Great, thank you very much, Katie. Before I open it up to the applicant, does any of the commissioners have any questions for staff? Commissioner Conley?
As shown on page 3, you have 4 modifications the applicant's requesting. And I don't see that specifically in the resolution. It's referred to, but it's not in the resolution. And so I was wondering if maybe those could be clarified and put in the resolution, maybe as part of like A through D there. And I have some questions on that, which I could talk to you about later. But
Sure. They actually are included in the site-specific conditions of approval on page 17. They're under condition number 10, and they are enumerated the same way, A through D. The language is slightly different, but it is the same modifications.
Okay, but that's Exhibit A, right?
Correct.
So Exhibit A is part of the resolution?
That's correct.
Okay.
The resolution includes,
Okay.
I think, I want to say 12 exhibits, but yes.
Okay. I do have some questions about those, but that can wait.
And Commissioner Kogler, do you have any questions before I open it up to the applicant?
I do not, Commissioner Neal. I have some questions, but I'll wait till after the applicant.
Great. Well, now we'd like to hear from the applicant if they'd like to say anything on the project. Please state your name.
Evening.
Good afternoon, or good evening. It's Greg Becker. Larry, are you taking over here?
Yes,
Okay, I'll go silent then.
we'll call you as needed. I'm Larry Gabriel, the architect in the project, 530 10th Street, Paso Robles. And Katie does a wonderful job presenting these projects, and usually doesn't leave me anything to say, but I do have a few things. We're trying to take an existing building that has seen its day, and I keep saying we're trying to make lemonade out of this lemon tree here. So we've done a couple things here to take the long building and split it up into smaller buildings. We're refacing it with a fresher look, a little bit more modern look, a little crisper colors, and some contrast to help distinguish the building, the drabby green that's there now. Also introducing some wood to soften it up a little bit in the pedestrian areas, mainly the courtyards and that sort of thing. So we have, the dark metal, the white metal. We've got a little bit of light gray metal as well, but we also introduced the wood and to soften the building up. So as Katie said, we've got an entry there. The building, we've actually came closer to the street another 5 feet to create our little property management office over there, and actually create an entry that faces the street. So that's part of our design process and part of what actually helped us meet the demands here. We've gone around also on the north side of the building, which you didn't show at all. I don't know if we have the north elevation, but we've actually painted the side there, and where we have the courtyards that are exposed in the front 2 buildings over there, in between, we put some siding and a faux vent in there to break that up. That's mainly the parking lot at the Mexican food restaurant next door. The next building down in the middle on is trees and a fence that belongs to the electrical contractor behind us, and you can't see it, so we didn't go any further than that. But we tried to take the building all the way around on 4 sides. So right now, that's broken up, and this is what you would see if the fence is down and the Mexican restaurant thing was gone. So one thing that we've asked about was our stack building in the back to not have an enclosed entry. The enclosed entry to me was a stack building that faces the street, where you have retail in the bottom and an entry door that goes into a lobby that would go upstairs to apartments or offices or whatever above. So because our building is all the way in the back and we have a storage yard behind us, that we just felt that it was not appropriate to enclose that, and we'd like to keep that as an open stairway. One of the issues that is coming up is the height of the building and the fact that it's 3 stories, but it's 3 stories with a loft, which is technically not a 4th floor. It's a loft, and it's not a bedroom, so it's an open space that's about the 1/3 the size of the open space below. So we've just presented one of these similar projects on Vine Street a while back, and it's in building department for review. And so that's consistent with that same project. The other part of the project is going to be all electric, so we're removing the sightly gas meters out in front. We put fences around the screen the front backflow preventers that are there. PG&E is making us put a transformer in front, so we're screening that as well. So I don't have that front view maybe. It's okay. So we've screened that. We've actually, we've got a couple different colors here. We're keeping the plaster on the north side of the building. We're just painting it a light gray. And we're taking the entry, the office there, and doing a medium gray metal. And then I've added a little trellis with some vines on it to soften that blank wall there. That's the existing electrical panels behind that we're keeping. So that's why the transformer's out in front. So this is the new look versus the photographs that you've seen of the existing building there. The other piece, we have the trash enclosure that Katie was referencing to in concrete block that we've done in paint the color of the block to match the colors on the site. But we also have the concrete block at our ramp that we've got to take the back building is down 2 feet lower than the front building. So that incorporates some continuity in materials there as well. The one question the request we have is to keep the setback to 5 feet. There's nothing behind us except a storage yard, a steep slope that's somewhere in the neighborhood 15, 17 feet high. We're going to seed that and hopefully stabilize the slope. But I'd rather put the 5 feet in the open space, give it to the basketball court, give it to the open space for everybody to use. It doesn't seem to make sense to me that 5 feet goes back as a setback. There's nobody there. There isn't going to be anybody there. So it seemed to me more sense to open it to all the patrons in the area than just give it to the back, the one guy in back that would get an extra 5 foot deep of side yard. So that's the request that we have there. That's I guess a little bit beyond. Other than that, we hope you like our presentation and our project here, and we're here to answer questions. I've got the owner's rep with me and the owner on the line, so we can answer anything you guys might have.
Great, thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Commissioner Morrow?
Well, I'd have to think about which ones would be for the applicant here. What would, okay, to start, what would be the purpose of the loft? If it's not a bedroom, what would that space be used for?
Home office?
So it would be incorporated in that whoever lives in that building, I guess that top floor on that building would get the loft. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Just that one. Well, actually, no, all the studios have lofts as well.
Okay.
So it's just, it's a small unit that the bed unit is downstairs and an office, extra space for any of that kind of stuff. It's not very big.
Understood.
So.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, we'll open it up to public comment, or we can have you come up and speak to it, so that's okay, thank you.
And then I noticed this is just a question on the ground floor units. Yeah, this one here, it looks like you have like a partition between two rooms. Is that what that is? Like an accordion partition?
We gave availability to the front units that I can get exit windows out of, that could be quasi closed off as a bedroom.
Okay.
It doesn't leave much room in front, so I didn't want to put a wall there. I want to leave it flexibility for whoever might move in. You might live, somebody wants to have a height of bed and do that, or somebody wants to set up a full-size bed. So it gives a little flexibility for the front units. The back units, I couldn't get an exit window, so I didn't do it. So it's a little variety.
That makes sense. And then for let's say the setback doesn't get approved or does get approved as a 0 foot setback. Constructability wise, it can be difficult to, do demolition and that type of work right on a property line without that. Have you been communicating with I guess there's 2 lots on the north side of the property. Have you talked to them? Are they aware of the setback and like how close you'll be working to the property line to be able to achieve the constructability of this project?
So you're talking the north wall?
Yeah.
We are going to be doing some work on that side where we have a utility easement. We're going to be upgrading a sewer line. So we'll be upgrading our sewer line through there. We are about a foot off that property line. We are going to need to get access to their side to paint and do that. But that's about all we're doing to that side, really. We're not doing much.
And there's a fence there?
There's a fence part of the way that's, so we would have to deal with the electrical contractor as well as the Mexican food restaurant.
And then the basketball courts, is there a fence from the north side that would stop access to the basketball courts from the north, or is that kind of like a walk-through? Would you be able to walk?
No, it's a fence.
There is a fence there, but it's owned by the adjacent property.
It's splitting the north. Yes, there's a fence on the north property line.
And is that the fence that's in the photos with the trees?
I don't.
There's in the document, there's like photos from like the trees, the oak trees on the north side. And it looks like a pretty tattered fence. So what you've proposed looks really, really nice, but I think that fence there, from what I can tell, would be kind of like, it's not your property, so I understand.
You're looking at the existing photos?
Yeah, there was existing photos in Exhibit I, and there was some fencing that was, I don't know, maybe it's kind of hard to see. But
well, there's fencing that's perpendicular that is between the Mexican food restaurant and the electrical contractor.
Okay.
That is staying.
Okay.
That might be the fence you're talking about. The fence going the other way is there's a small fence there now. We're going to replace it.
You would be replacing that fence?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me just look back at my notes. What's the breakdown for units? Like how many studios, how many one bedrooms, how many two bedroom? It might have been in there. I just didn't notice it.
They're all studios except the one on the top floor is a two-bedroom.
Okay.
Back.
So 4 two bedrooms.
So it's 18 studios
Okay.
and 1 two-bedroom,
Okay.
or 17 studios and 1, what do I have? 18 and 1, thank you. Yeah, so 1's two-bedroom make 19. I was trying to get to 19. Yes. And then while we're at it, the 5 feet in the back that we're talking about, we've talked to the owner back there, Michael Joe Goldstein, about access to his property. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
And what's happening is we're collecting, stormwater is collecting into our collection system, and we're down too low to get the water to come out to the front. So it's going to go through a French drain and just basically dribble all across the back of the property, and that's what's happening.
So that you have a 3x3 drain inlet on the east side of the property with an 8-inch pipe. That 8-inch pipe's going to stub out on the east side of the property into a French drain? Is that, because looking at your civil plan, you have like a valley gutter.
That's a landscape DI. It's going to go back to our retention tank, and then the overflow will go back to the French drain.
Is that retention tank shown on the civil drawings?
It's shown on the civil plan.
Okay, maybe I just missed it. All right, well, that's good. So there's a plan to work with the MGE underground to.
The city asked us to work with him. I made a couple phone calls, and he sent back an email that he's fine with it. We did not contact the Mexican food restaurant, unfortunately, but it's wide open. The one we probably need to get access to is that we need to contact is the electrical contractor.
Okay. Oh, I see here, note 11, the MC45, 2,400 cubic foot storage. I see. Okay, cool, right on. So that'll.
The overflow is what is in the French drain. It's not what we're collecting and going straight to a French drain.
And that's a percolating system there?
Yes.
Like open gravel? Okay, cool, right on. All right. Nope, I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
Okay.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Thank you. Thank you for all that clarity. I was going to ask about questions about the setback as well. So just for clarity, Katie, the only setback exception we're asking for is that rear side then, the east side?
For new structures, the existing building has a non-conforming side setback on the north property line,
Right.
but that's existing. And
That's
in my
existing.
opinion, the situation is being made better. But in the rear, yes, that is the only exception, that rear setback.
So I understand there's a slope. Is that slope fenced at all, or is it just sloped with vegetation?
It'll be fenced.
It will be fenced after you're done. Okay.
We're fenced up to we're fencing all the way. Well, there's definitely a retaining wall, but we're fenced up to the end of the building. Right.
So yes, you are fenced up to the end?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Katie, on trash enclosures, I know it's been a topic of discussion. Is there a requirement that there are more than one trash enclosure depending on the size? So in this case, we're looking at 19 units. There's only one trash enclosure, so per regulation, that's adequate?
I did route this to the city solid waste manager, and yes, the one is adequate. He had some comments about size of the enclosure, but the quantity of enclosures was not a problem.
Not an issue. Okay. So the property is in a unique location because it shares a large parking lot. If you're facing this to the south, right? It's very open. That property, I believe, where's the property line go down in that parking lot?
Yeah, as you see right here, that's the property line, and we have an easement of, I believe, 12 feet on the other side. So there's 24-foot backup from the numbers that show the number of the parking stalls.
Mm-hmm.
Like from the top of above the number 4 down, we're 24, 25 feet of easement there that's split on the property line.
Okay.
So it's an access, the driveway, it'll access right through there. That property's been for sale. I've actually done 3 or 4 preliminary plans for 3 or 4 different developers, and depending who you talk to or what we're doing, we can get 50 to 60 units on there, surface parking and that kind of thing. And that's kind of what I would see happening there.
Okay.
Unless somebody did maybe a senior housing project, might be a good location for that.
Okay. Well, you kind of answered my next question because I was going to ask if that property had been sold yet, and it sounds like it has not.
I don't think so.
No? Okay. All right. You mentioned the front office, property management office type thing. unique because you don't typically see an office with a residential apartment type complex. The office it has access to what precisely? That building has an office.
Right.
Upstairs is going to be another apartment?
No, it's all by itself.
All by itself.
It's a 220 square foot office with has a little bathroom and a little workroom and a small lobby. And part of it is, to lease it up. It's a leasing office, but we also have the project on Vine Street on basically between 1st and 2nd on Vine Street that we've got 6 units we're doing right now in there's existing house. So it'll manage that as well.
Okay.
So same owner, same property management.
Okay. All right. That's an easy enough answer. Let me look at my notes here real quick. So question regarding the loft. You mentioned that the loft is going to be used by that person on the top 3rd floor, correct?
Uh-huh.
So the height of the building, I was on DRC in March, and I know we talked a lot about that height. What would the building height be without that loft? Is there a significant difference? Just roughly.
Maybe 5-6 feet. It wouldn't be a full height, wouldn't be a full floor.
It wouldn't be a full floor.
No.
So the idea of adding the loft is for the benefit of the tenant, just to give them a little bit more space? Because I think you mentioned that the unit itself is fairly small.
It's a small 2-bedroom unit. Yeah, it's small. It's a kitchenette basically, and a small dining area and a small sitting area.
But it's the only 2-bedroom unit you have, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. We don't have anything adjacent to it, Katie, that is equal in height, right? I mean, I drove down the street and I tried to envision a 36-foot tall building back there. I think it's going to be hidden enough, off the street enough, but there's nothing else that I saw that was even close.
So the new apartments right at the intersection of 26th and Spring actually got a height exception. That building is 37 feet tall.
The one that's over by the Moose?
Correct.
Mm.
But it's right up on the street. It also got a
Right, that's the one that's on Spring, pretty much on Spring Street.
Right, it got a front setback exception as well as a height exception due to the affordable units they dedicate.
Right, okay.
And if you give us the privilege of approving us, we'll be done and open before he gets done.
Yeah. All right, let me make sure I got nothing else for now. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Conley?
Okay, I have a few questions, and one for staff. With regard to,
We will
later,
bring it
but
around to.
yeah, with regard to the applicant, just to clarify in my mind, the only new building is going to be the easterly side, the 3-quad and the duplex, or a modification of the existing building?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So it's not a complete tear down and rebuild?
No, we're just basically cutting slices out of it.
Okay.
So I kept 20 feet in front, and then I opened a 20-foot double patio space, and I kept 40 feet, which would house 4 units, and then another 20 feet of patio, and then the last 40 feet.
Okay, so just to clarify the loft situation, the duplex and the 3 fourplexes indicate that there's a loft as well, but I don't see a bedroom, so I have to assume that the loft in the main building is actually the bedroom. Is that a correct assumption? On
the plan here, it's a height-a-bed, it's a bed, however you want to deal with it. You can put a bed down there full-time, you can have a height-a-bed, has a ladder that goes up to a small loft office space.
Okay, so I see kitchen, living room, bathroom on the first floor.
Right, the living room is a height-a-bed.
Okay.
The bottom on the bottom shows that it could be divided up and actually put a bed there to full-time. I probably should just put one in there. But that could be a bed that you close off on the front units.
Okay, so these have lofts as well, and I assume that access to the loft is some type of step ladder? I don't see a stairway.
No, right next to the little closet with an L in it is
step ladder?
It's like a ship's ladder. It actually pulls out and you climb up, and when you get down, you can shove it all the way in.
Okay. So that's how they would get to the loft.
Right.
Okay.
And it's got an open railing, and it's No closets, it's just a loft space.
Okay, that answers my questions with regard to the applicant.
Commissioner Kogler, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Comment, a clarification, and then a question for staff. The comment being that I assume by the nature of these units being studios, they are going to be relatively affordable. I have some level of disappointment that we don't have deed restricted affordable housing for some share of these in order to maintain that over time. The clarification, I just want to make sure that the 36-foot height of the building is to the top of the roof over the loft as defined in the ordinance for building height. That is the 36-foot number. Is that correct?
That is correct. Let me bring up the elevation. Yes, the building is still only 36 feet tall.
Okay, very good. Because we had, and you probably remember this, Katie, better than I did, we had another proposal between 13th and 14th, I think, on Park that had a loft. I believe that one went above the height and we denied that one. But if this one's consistent with the overall height, I don't have a problem with that. The other line of questioning I have is I would like some explanation on the open space. The applicant, or the staff report, I guess, states based on the applicant's information that there's a 20-foot wide by 40-foot deep open space that is 900 square feet by my calculations quickly. The chart you showed had a requirement of 150 square feet with proposed 175 square feet. Sort out the whole allocation of open space for me, if you would, please, so I better understand how they're compliant.
Is that for me?
You're certainly welcome to jump in, but the way the specific plan is written is that the different building types have different open space requirements, and some of them are shared open space requirements and some are private. It so happens on quadplexes, you can provide either shared open space or private open space or a combination thereof. For stacked dwellings, it actually calls out both a shared open space and a private open space. And so for the stacked dwelling, that rear building that we see on the screen, there's a requirement both to provide a shared open space the requirement is for it to be in a courtyard, and then ground floor units would need at least 150 square foot yard, and upper floors would need to be provided with a balcony. There's no real dimensions listed in the stacked dwelling building type. There are some minimums elsewhere in the specific code that are slipping my mind right now, but these balconies would certainly meet that limit. It's pretty small. Anyway, so the applicant meets the private open space requirements. The shared open space requirement, I think, is where we would say, they're requesting a modification.
Okay, thank you. And then just related to the open space, to pick up on a good call by Commissioner Marlowe, that basketball picnic area, I think I heard there's going to be reconstruction of an existing fence. I would hope that fencing is compliant with the fencing that you're using between the buildings and it's harmonious in design. That's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Okay, if I can, I'd like to show you the plan right now to where each little studio has a storage unit outside with a 250 cubic feet. We've exceeded that, and we have the patio also exceeds the requirement over there. So beside it just being a small studio, they have some outdoor space, and that is open to the sky. So this is not necessarily a little rat hole down, it's not all covered and dark. If you can you go to the other unit? So the unit, the walk-up first floor plan, you'll see that we have a covered patio and an open patio for the two units on the bottom. And then we have, each unit has a storage and a patio above. So that's taking care of all the open space for those. And again, we're trying to keep that extra 5 feet in the open area there with the court and the picnic table and thing that everybody can share. So that's, I think that's the little bit that we may be asking for you to approve for us, besides the open stairwell.
Great, thank you very much. I do not have any questions, and anybody else from the applicant wish to speak on this? If not, I will open it up to public comment.
Real quick, I don't think you asked the last commissioner's last question regarding the fencing in it, the new fencing being consistent with the planning requirement. I believe that was his last question. So I just wanted to.
It was a statement more than.
Was it a statement? Okay. I
Harmonious.
understand.
will be harmonious.
So anybody from the applicant wish to speak on this? If not, anybody from the public wish to speak? Open up the public comment. Marcy, any?
There are no callers.
Great. And with that, I will close public comment and bring it back for the commission for additional questions of staff. Any? Commissioner Marlowe?
Conway. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
you want-
Commissioner.
Oh, okay. On page 3 of 65, if Katie, if you'd look at that, I have a couple of questions or clarifications that need to be made on 6B, the bottom of page 3 of 65. It's a little confusing to me. It says that the stacked dwelling building type is required to provide shared open space in the courtyard. It looks like with at least, I think add is missing. Is it 30 square feet?
No, 30-foot dimensions, what I meant was there's a kind of a complicated language in the specific plan. Depending on the orientation of the courtyard, it has to be 30 feet. If it's east-west oriented, it's kind of a convoluted description, but at a minimum 30 feet by 30 feet.
Okay, so that would be 30 feet squared. Okay,
Correct.
so that's, in my mind, that's 900 square feet. I don't see how that's different than what is being provided with a 20 by 45, other than the dimensions are different. It's still 900 square feet, right?
Dimensions are different. The building type is meant to have an internal courtyard, so the building would sort of surround the courtyard. That's the Uptown Town Center specific plan is a form-based code, so that's the reason for lots of design requirements.
So my concern with regard to Resolution A, including these requested modifications, is that these requested modifications, as they're shown on page 3, are a little fuzzy in my mind. If they're clarified somewhere else, like you were mentioning on page 17, that's fine. But I think 17 just states kind of a generic term of those. But anyway, that's my main concern about this report. 6B seems like it's a little, like you're talking about 30 square feet instead of at least 30. I think you missed the word at, but at least 30 square feet to mention. 30 by 30 maybe, or something to that effect could be clarified. I also have a little conflict with part D on the next page. It says the rear building is proposed 5 feet from the rear property line, while the required rear setback is 10 feet. But on page 5, you mentioned it's 8 feet. So is it 8 or is it 10? Or is it a different?
That would be a
side yard. Okay, so this would be, am I comparing apples to oranges here? So the rear building is the north side, and the other one's the east side. Is that what we're saying?
Right.
Okay.
You bet.
Okay.
So the Spring Street would be the front property line. So that's where the front setback would be required. Mm-hmm. The eastern property line would be the rear, where the rear setback would be measured from, and the side setbacks would be measured from the north and south sides.
Okay. And then my last question or comment is, it seemed like 20 parking spaces for 19 dwelling units in an office is kind of on the low side. Does that meet the city standards? It says it does, but it seems like a lot of apartment dwellers will have 2 cars. Where will the overflow parking be?
So the code requirement in the Uptown Town Center specific plan, which is designed to be in some ways underparked. The idea is that the Uptown area will not be a Walmart parking lot. There will be street parking. There will not. So, it is inherent within the specific plan that projects are not designed to provide for parking in the maximum moment of, when parking is required. So the requirement is 1 parking space for every studio or 1 bedroom unit. It is 2 parking spaces for every unit that is 2 or more bedrooms. And so the project does meet its parking requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Commissioner Kochler, do you have any questions of staff?
No further questions, Commissioner Neal.
Any other questions? I do have a few. On page 4 of 65, you have March 6, 2021. I believe that was March 6, 2023. And the same thing happens on the resolution, which would be page 12 of 65, whereas the development plan at the bottom, second paragraph from the bottom, should be 2023. Looking at the conditions of approval, let's see, which item was that? Number 11, for the oak tree, it was 25-foot setback. I think if from the trunk, I think if I look at 16.4 plus 8 doesn't quite get us to 25 feet. I think we're short 8 inches, if my math is correct. So additionally, on the tree consultant, the arborist, they suggested a 10-foot separation between the foundation and the property line for tree number 5. And I believe that was on page 52 of 65. This would require a setback from the property line of at least 10 feet to the foundation. And that was for tree 5, which is adjacent to the 3-story building. So those are my questions or my statements. I think we probably need to slide the building forward at least 8 inches to meet the 25-foot requirement.
Sure. So if we look at the site plan on the screen, the largest tree in the top right, the trees are labeled as tree, it's in Roman numerals. So tree 6 is the furthest to the right.
Sorry.
And tree 5 is
You're correct.
adjacent to it. But I think that, your point is right, because 16.4 plus 8 does not equal 25. There, we are lacking 8 inches. That is a true statement.
Yeah. Okay. Then I was on DRC, and I was under the assumption that we did not have a whole lot of discretion on the rear setback. Has that changed?
No, you have absolutely, you have discretion. The rear setback is 10 feet. You do have discretion to allow a modification if you feel it's justified.
Okay, great. That's different than I understood at the DRC meeting, but thank you so much for the clarification. So that's it for me. And with that, I'll open it up to a potential motion or any further questions from Commission? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Covarrubias.
That's okay. So just to the point, so the 5-foot setback is the exception in the rear, and that is being done to accommodate really the basketball area, correct?
That is the argument, the applicant's contention, yes.
Right. And the basketball area is meant to be obviously just a recreational facility for the tenants. I mean, with lofts, I can't imagine, just a guess, can't imagine that you're going to get a lot of families here, mainly adults, so maybe it's intended for young adults playing. Well, I don't want to discriminate. Any person willing to play basketball, I guess. So, yeah.
I mean, certainly they're small units. I don't know if the applicant has any intention of screening, their tenants, but they're. I'm not sure how to answer the question. Yes, if there's a basketball court that would obviously, it's located in a way that it could serve all the units on the lot.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going to ponder a little bit.
Is there a motion or further discussion from the Commission?
I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
I'll move that we adopt draft resolution A approving development plan 22-22, including requested modifications with the adjusted additional, is it 8 inches that we need?
That would give us the
That would give us the
Requirement.
full requirement. Is that correct, Katie?
So you're asking, so it would be to amend, I think it's a condition.
Sorry.
No, I believe we want to amend condition number 13 to include 8 feet 6 inches on number 13, if I understand correctly.
That sounds correct. Yep, that sounds correct.
I'm sorry, 8 feet. 8 I believe it's 8 feet.
Yes, and my notes, I was just putting a plus 8 inches, so yes,
Okay,
8
all
feet 8 inches for a total distance of 25 feet from the tree.
Great, thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a first from Commissioner Covarrubias, a second from Commissioner Marlowe. Any further discussion from the commission? Commissioner Kogler, any further discussion?
No.
And with that, I will call the question. Darren?
Get my notes here. So Commissioner Covarrubias.
Aye.
Commissioner Marlowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Conley.
Aye.
Commissioner Kogler.
Aye.
Commissioner Chairperson Neal.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, we'll close we'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Any discussion items, Darren, this evening? I can wait until you finish taking notes.
No discussion items.
Okay. Consent calendar, approval of Planning Commission minutes from April 11th and the DRC from the 5th and the 12th. Any discussion or a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
A motion by Commissioner Marlowe, a second by Commissioner Conley. Any further discussion? Darren, please call.
Commissioner Marlowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Conley.
Aye.
Commissioner Kogler.
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Aye.
Chairperson Neal.
Aye. And other reports. I think we haven't had a Paso Robles Street Ad Hoc Committee because we had one right before the last meeting.
Do we have any report on that in terms of another meeting schedule?
Yeah, we're going to get another meeting scheduled, an agenda out, hopefully by this week, so we can get one in July.
Great, thank you. Housing Constraints and Opportunities, I'm on that committee and I haven't heard anything, so I suspect there's no update. And then Development Review Committee rotation schedule. June's just in the middle, and it's Commissioner Kogler, Marlowe, and Davis. And then July is Conley, Neal, and Davis. And I believe Commissioner Connolly has made arrangements for his missing days in July. And then August is Covarrubias, Neal, and Conley.
And I still have an, excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off. I still have an issue with the August 7th and 14th date. I'll be out of town for both those days. So if somebody wants to switch, just let me know. We got time. And then I believe our next Planning Commission meeting is on the 11th. Is that accurate? If so, I am also out of town on that day.
So it looks like the next meeting on the 11th will be canceled. We don't have any items ready.
Okay.
And then we've canceled the following one because of the fair. So
Right.
the 2 meetings in July would be canceled, which would mean the next meeting would be in August. So Rob, you're going to have to be at those August meetings.
Yes, sir.
Great. Planning Commissioner comments. Commissioner Conley, any comments?
Back to the DRC, I think Mark Kuglier is filling in for me on the days in July. But that's it. Yeah.
Commissioner Marlowe, any comments?
No comments.
Commissioner Covarrubias, any comments?
As usual, Katie, great job. Great job with your presentation. Thank you.
Commissioner Kogler, any comments?
One quick one. Taking advantage as I am at the moment of AB 361 from your introduction, We got through the other reports before I could raise my hand or interject on the Paso Robles streetscape. I just want to add that we tentatively had talked about a meeting on July 17th. Whether or not that comes to pass, we'll see. But we do intend to bring information back to the Planning Commission prior to the time it goes to the City Council sometime in August. So I just wanted to interject that. And other than that, no comments.
Great, thank you for the update. I do have a comment. I believe that Mr. Cowan introduced himself as the city engineer. Is that a wearing of two hats, or is that a new hat?
Right.
For the time being, it's two hats.
Great, well, congratulations, I think.
Thank you.
Staff comments?
No other comments besides what's been mentioned.
And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
And is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Great. How about everybody seconds?
Yeah.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.